I'd like to advertise documentation of what everybody is doing in the code. It's the order test. Not necessarily a good thing. Sorry.
That's just more the text, of course. I just tell our systems guy that in 5 minutes will come.
If you look at, say, the hydro module, then something has changed recently, and that's the way the diagnostic variables in that sense is the stuff that you can choose to print out every 10 time steps or whatever. The way they are written, and this used to be just integer I diag u 2tm equals 0, comma I diag u 2m equals 0, and so on. And so it didn't take up that much vertical space. And now every variable here, and it's the same in a number of modules, but not yet in all modules by far. Every diagnostic variable has its own line here. So if in printer-in you specify umass, then in reality you're working with this variable here, and the corresponding slot in one array. You don't want to know all the details. Also, you need to know them to some level in order to implement your own diagnostic variable. Now, if you do that, if you implement a new diagnostic variable, now the procedure is to add a comment like this, and after that comment put a description of the variable. So that can be just the formula, if that's clear enough, or it can be the formula, and then if you want to, you can continue that on the next line, some explicit comment. And the manual, now when you build the manual, it extracts the part after that marker, which you write in LaTeX format, and then your documentation automatically appears in the manual. So if we look at the manual, we should be able to bring it to identify. Oh, this is so I've done this with all the modules that were already appearing in that table in the manual. So we haven't lost information. You'll find that the order is somewhat weird. We can reorder the stuff here, but I wanted to do this in 2 steps and not to change everything too much in case I'm screwing something up or somebody else has to change and wants to identify what happened. But there's lots of modules where this has not happened. So for the people who have implemented UZZ2M, it may be clear what UZZ2M is. For everybody else, it's probably not. So whoever implemented that, add a comment here and explain what you're doing. And there's lots and lots of these variables. Some of them are obviously mine, but I have forgotten what the meaning of the symbol is, which is reason enough to document them for the future. And if you add something, do that. If you're working with a module where this stuff here is not yet added to the declaration of these variables, then please feel encouraged to start doing that and to document the variables that you know about.
And that works now automatically, or what?
That's now, yeah, that's now part of the manual.
It's working for all files.
It searches there are some files that get put first on the list, and everything all the other .f90 files are checked later on. But all the files in the source all the .f90 files in the source directory are used. Currently, if you have several installations of the pencil code, it might pick the wrong one, but I'm not sure whether that's a big problem. That can be changed. So here we have the table, and for module height, we start with this very familiar to everybody quantity u times the integral of u, whatever that is supposed to be.
Oh, that's just recently installed, of course.
Yes, and you decided to put the declaration at the very beginning. Where you have that?
And I didn't even know that it works. And we thought we'd do the latex thing anyway. That's pretty good.
Yeah, so you put that at the beginning here, and that's why it appears first in the
Yes.
documentation.
Great.
Which obviously means that we should think about the order we are using here and try to make it systematic. That helps for coding if you have to deal with that variable, and it helps for documentation. Next step, Anders suggested to do the same thing with the boundary conditions, and I've started to change the boundary conditions file, but I haven't adapted the parser yet, so that's work in progress. I think we can also, I think we should also do that with the input parameters that you put in startup in and roundup in. At the point where the name lists are declared, we can add comments like that, and then that table can also be automated. Also, the part of the work in converting this is making sure that all the stuff that's documented in the manual now is also then documented that way, and that's somehow tedious. But well, at least for this one we have it. And one thing I wanted to maybe discuss is, apart from the documentation, there is also one thing about these variables, these diagnostic variables, that I find annoying, and that, well, sorry, I want to say, apart from the sometimes missing documentation, there's something else that I find annoying. We declared the variable here by this one. Oh, that's different ones anyway. And then we have, at some point we have to reset their values to 0, and then we have to, at some point we are doing, probably not here, but in a sense, there's a standard program that we have to do with these diagnostic variables, and some of this stuff is just replicated. Sometimes we forget to reset one, and then it means that things are screwed up. I think part of this replication can be taken away if we put these variables all in a separate module, where we, in addition to the declaration, we can also, well, we have the declaration, we have the comment there, and the resetting can then be automatically done there. It might mean we have to auto-generate that. Does how would that work? I forgot the details. I once thought this through. I just wanted to know whether people think that's a good idea. Does it make sense to have all these diagnostic variables in a separate module that we then use? And yes, I think that one would be auto-generated to some extent at least. So basically we would leave stuff here, but it would all be comments. And then from those comments we extract that file, and then from that module we just use that. Does that make sense, or should we try to minimize the number of auto-generated
Would it be one file with all diagnoses in, or would it be one single one for each module?
It would be. No, that was my first thought, and that I would not want to have. We don't want to have 20 auto-generated files in addition to the stuff that we really write. It would be one file. It might be. I think it would be one file with 20 modules, actually, something like that, if I recall that correctly.
So in other words, you would probably just give the variable
as a character string, UXM.
Yeah. So you have a comment with
that's
a
it.
special marker, and then you say UXM. You even forget about the I diac.
And you would give
And then
some, because as opposed to max or something, and you would give another keyword perhaps, like this one. And that's all the information that you would need to give only one in one line perhaps. And that's, yeah, that's an interpreted.
You need to tell it everything. You need to tell it which variable you want to look at also. Because if you give it UM2, it's not certain.
So in that sense, maybe this here will still be on that line, but there, at some point we need to reset these diagnostic variables, and that needs to be in sync with the declaration high up, and that's the point that always I found always where we're replicating stuff, and that is easy to get out of sync, and that we would get rid of.
On the other hand, has it been ever out of sync? I don't recall as being produced. I don't think that it was ever really.
And every now and then I see that list where the variables are reset, and I find that something is just probably it's a declaration. Something is just declared but not set to 0.
I mean, one could equally, of course, have a test saying which tests for such bugs of somebody having forgotten something. I mean, you do all these adjustments by example anyway, and that's maybe 5 entries of this character string in the entire code. Maybe less than 10 certainly. Right? If you just search for this quality, use that max throughout the entire code. There's not too many. And those ones you have to replicate if you want to add another diagnostics. Very good. By the way, Yuri is supposed to come here if she's coming. But she's not coming.
Where is it? It's set in different ways. Here. Maybe it never happened. Maybe it happens and we don't realize.
What?
To forget it, resetting a variable here. That if you add a diagnostic variable, if you forget to put it here, I'm not even sure what happens then, but obviously things go wrong. Otherwise you wouldn't do that. And I just find this annoying. I mean, we declare the variable, we set it to 0 there, and then we have to do something else on here. So that's why I suggest to at least automate that at the expense of having an auto-generated file that might be somewhat cryptic to read, or at least having information that refers to UM2 in an external file. I guess that's the most the downside of this. But if you want to see what's going on, actually, you have to look there. If you know how to deal with diagnostic variables, you don't have to look there. You just put the comment in this file here, and then there is a line extracted that ends up somewhere else, and then you use that module from here. So.
What about the parsing should get in? Will that also be moved to the external file?
I don't think so. I mean that's working, and
but it's a lot of repetition, right? In a way, it's strange that it takes place in every single module. It's the same thing happening all the time. There's nothing special about it. Nothing module dependent upon it. It's just going through print.in.
So where would that be?
In Outprint, when you search for something in Outprint.
Okay. Yes, and that's really the same stuff for all of them.
Yeah, and then
okay, that
you don't have any degrees of freedom here. You have to write that.
Yeah. So that would naturally go there too. So I think that would be an auto-gen one. Well, it would certainly not be more than one file. One auto-generated file, probably with many modules that we then just use from the other side, so we keep them stored. Yeah.
Could there be just a script which checks that things have gone to the right places?
That's a similar amount of work, and I find it annoying. I mean, it's nice if somebody checks whether I've done unnecessary, tedious work right, but I'd rather not do that work in the first place.
And another possibility would have to that the script actually fills out something in that file. That it takes and creates output right inside the file. It's a little bit dangerous.
Inside hydro.f90.
Yeah, a little bit dangerous.
That's something I would not want. I mean, the files we edit often shouldn't be touched by automatic tools, I think. It would be one separate file, and it could even have the suffix .inc that we are using, and then there would be a dummy front end that really has a .f90 extension, and that is also not touched. Probably that's the way to do it, because yeah.
So it would be diagnostics.
Unless people feel that diagnostics is a very generic term, and our use of it for just the stuff that you print out on the status line is too limited.
That's 5-year-old principle, shall we? So, we do invent a lot of words for things, but so do